Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah, joined today by Meg Wochnick, and we are here to talk about what might be the busiest week of state championship sports that I can remember. We're going to talk some wrestling, we're going to talk some basketball, we're going to talk some swimming, and even some gymnastics. But Meg, it is a busy time of the year.
It always is. This week is kind of a culmination of so many of our sports all at once. And so, yeah, from Thursday to Saturday, we're going to be pretty stacked about going all over this region, and even for some of you, going up north.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to start this off by kind of examining one of the more special storylines, I would say, that I can remember in recent years here. And it goes back to a story you published this last Saturday on Faith Tarrant, the amazing wrestler out at Prairie High School. Faith will be trying to become the first Clark County wrestler, boy or girl, to become a 4-time state champion. And that's why I wanted to start this episode talking about wrestling and this weekend's MAC Classic, because you got to spend some time with Faith. You got to really know her. And if you're interested, not just in wrestling, but in just, some of the great things our local student athletes are doing in their high schools, please go back and read Meg's story from this past Saturday. You can find it on Columbian.com. But I guess I would say, Meg, what makes Faith such not only a great wrestler, but an amazing human being and a student athlete?
Yeah, you said it. So she is going for history, trying to become just the 23rd wrestler statewide all-time, boys or girls, to win 4 state titles. The term 4-timer in wrestling is real. It's something part of elite company she's trying to join. But what makes Faith exceptional, not just as a wrestler and an athlete, but she's also student body president of Prairie. And when I was thinking about doing this special story, this goes all the way back to November, when I was thinking, she's already been our 3-time All-Region Girls Wrestler of the Year. We've told her story at length in various ways as far as highlighting her and her wrestling accomplishments. But I'm thinking, what makes Faith Faith? And then I found out that she was ASP president. I'm thinking, that's it right there. And so this is the way I did the story is something that I've done a couple of times in my career, is basically going to school with an athlete, or maybe spending extended time of the school day at practice, or even spending some extended time at home. And so, yes, I went back to high school for a day. I spent 2 classes with Faith, tagged along at her with lunch with her friends, and then also spent wrestling practice a couple weeks ago at the school. So all in all, is about 6 hours out at Prairie. So this is a story that I got to give thanks not only to Faith, but also Prairie's administration and the folks in the Battleground Public School District office for allowing us to be a part of her and really showcase her in a different way beyond the athletic side. So it's a story that was a little bit more work that takes place more than just a traditional feature story that we do on our student athletes, but it was well worth it. She's just an exceptional leader, and you can see that through my video. I did about a 6-minute kind of behind the scenes video in addition to the story, and you just really see how much she loves Prairie and loves wrestling.
Well, one of the reasons I think it's so valuable to spend time kind of in the subject's world, in Faith's world, is that you can report a story based on, accolades, on statistics, on, records, but what you get from actually being in the halls and in the classroom are moments. So my question to you is, what moments from being with Faith on that day at Prairie kind of stand out about what sort of makes that story so special?
I think just about every 15 to 20 seconds going through the halls, whether it was going from class to class or class to lunch to the parking lot, probably every 20 seconds someone was saying hi to Faith, or she was giving a hug to a fellow student that she knew. Everyone at Prairie knows who Faith Tarrant is, and it was really neat to see how everyone just really gravitates toward her. And one of the interviews I did was the ASB Vice President, Itzel Contreras, and she really convinced Faith to run for student body president as a senior last spring. And I asked her, why did you decide to pick Faith essentially as your running mate on the ticket? And she's like, because Faith Tarrant knows what motivation is. She knows what hard work is, and she's dedicated to the school. And there's very few kids, Itzel said, that really check all of those boxes that she was looking for in a potential student body president. And obviously the student body of Prairie agreed. It's pretty much a landslide victory for Faith and Itzel for the ticket for the 24-25 school year.
Well, one of the elements that your story touched on that I've sort of tracked over the years and following Faith from when she became a state champion as a freshman throughout, is she's always talked about wanting to grow the sport of girls wrestling and being an ambassador. You know, one of the things that stood out for me when I first saw her wrestle as a freshman was, here was this freshman that, you know, before the year, no one really knew anything about. And by the time she's at the Tacoma Dome at Mac Classic, here's this freshman who happens to go and win the state title, but is not just doing that. She's getting all the girls wrestlers in her weight class at weigh-ins like together for a selfie, basically saying, you know, yeah, we might be going against each other on the mat, but we're really for each other when it comes to lifting each other up and encouraging each other, and just this bond that girls wrestling then at a time, it was a kind of, I think, emerging from its role as kind of a niche sport within wrestling to, at that time that Faith was a freshman, you just had one tournament for all classifications of girls. But in the 4 years since, girls wrestling has grown so much that now this weekend at the Tacoma Dome, you'll have a separate tournament for 4A, a separate tournament for 3A, and a separate tournament for 2A and smaller. So just what were your conversations like with her about the growth of girls wrestling and kind of how proud she is about that?
Oh, I mean, she couldn't stop smiling when she talks about just wrestling. She grew up, before attending Prairie, she and her mom and older brother Derek grew up in Colorado, and that's when she started wrestling. And wrestling in Colorado, she said, is just as big as it is in Washington. And Washington was the first high school state association to start a girls state wrestling tournament back in 2007. But you said it, just in her timeline at Prairie, we've seen it go from one classification to two for the last 2 years, and now we're going to have the big schools 4A and 3A have their own separate classification in addition to a third for the smaller schools. But she lights up the room when she's talking about other athletes like Libby Roberts of University of Spokane, who, like Faith, is going for her fourth state title at the 110 weight class. In fact, there could be as many as 6 four-time champions when you count boys and girls that are trying for that achievement this weekend. So she's really an ambassador for the sport, and she talked about meeting one of her idols back in January, Amita Lohr, who was the gold medalist in women's freestyle wrestling back in the Paris Olympics, and how she is basically modeling everything after what Amita Lohr stands for in women's wrestling, everything from just dealing with the struggles of mental health, of being an elite athlete, to really being that ambassador for a sport that is continuing to grow and growing at an exceptional rate in Washington.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see kind of how this weekend turns out in Tacoma. It's not only bigger on the girls' side, it's bigger on the boys' side, in that now the tournament stretches over 3 days. You're going to have 3A, 4A start on Thursday with, on the boys' side, 64 wrestler brackets up from 32. So it's basically a tournament that's doubled in size. And so not only are you going to have Faith going for a fourth state title, you also have some boys that are going to try to repeat as state champions. You've got the twins, Mason and Jonas DeRochers, going for the Skyview sophomores, who will try to get their second state titles and even keep alive the possibility that they may one day be 4-time state champions. You're going to have JJ Shaneline, the Skyview senior, go for his third state title. And then you're going to have Noah Koyama of Union, a senior, going for his second state title. So just a ton of storylines up there in the biggest ever Mac Classic in Tacoma.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been at Mac Classic, but if you haven't been at that event, it is something unlike any other. Like, you look at neighboring Oregon and they use Memorial Coliseum, and there's a couple of other locations around the state for wrestling, but this is the only one of its kind where all classifications around the state are all in one venue under one roof. It is something just spectacular. And year after year, they just amaze me of what just a great event they put on. And when someone achieves a feat of being a 4-time state champion, they really go all out and make sure that everyone is aware of the accomplishment that just happened on the mat.
Yeah, I think credit goes to the original organizers of the event, because they have always made it a celebration of wrestling across the entire state. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a wrestler right after they've won a state championship, and they talk about going to the Tacoma Dome as a 7 or an 8-year-old and watching the ones who came before them win and wanting to be just like them. And now they can't believe that they're the ones on the mat possibly getting their hand raised in a state championship match. So I think, I've come to appreciate wrestling more and more as the years have gone on, not only how hard of a sport it is, how much skill is involved, but also appreciate just the way that community celebrates the accomplishments within it.
Yeah, you said it. I have the utmost respect for wrestlers. It is a hard, grueling sport. Practices are 20 times harder than matches. Just watching Prairie's practice for the almost 2 hours that I was there, and it was just drenched in sweat, and both guys and girls just absolutely exhausted. And there's nothing like having a bond between athletes who are just sweaty and nasty and gross, as Faith alluded to in the story, and kind of having that bond because the sport is so hard. And the fact that wrestlers love the fact that it's hard. And in a sport like wrestling, it sets you up for a lot of life lessons and successes later on in life as a wrestler. And
that's always something worth celebrating. So I can't wait to head up to Tacoma this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's going to be a lot of great stuff up there in Tacoma. All right, but wrestling isn't the only thing happening this week. In fact, wall-to-wall basketball. It is state playoff. It's the time of year when seeding is being determined, berths are being clinched, and we're going to release this episode one day early on Wednesday because we have a couple of pretty consequential games coming up this Wednesday. Nonetheless, another Camas versus Union girls basketball clash. Camas and Union have rolled through the first 2 rounds of the bi-district tournament, and they will meet in a semifinal with both having punched their ticket to the state tournament. But this one, seeding could really, the result of this game could really play a big role in the seeding that each of those teams gets.
Yeah, so confirm this morning, Tuesday morning, 7 o'clock, Wednesday at Battleground. It will be a neutral site game. Yeah, round 4, you said it. So I was fortunate to see Camas pretty much have its way in their winner to state by district quarterfinal win over Olympia, 63-17, and just complete dominance from start to finish in a game where they shot 50% from the field. Kira Thompson, 22 points, 8 of 14 shooting, 7 assists. That was probably her best game, bar none, since hurting her ankle back on the 3rd week of January. So Coach Scott Thompson said it even post-game, is that's the best that he has seen her play. And I have no doubt that this is going to be a fantastic game. You mentioned it seeding-wise. I think if Camas wins and ultimately goes on to play for the bi-district title, I think they're a top 8. If Union wins, I definitely think they have a very good argument for a top 4 seed. But there's a number of other teams up north, including a couple of teams out of the Kinko, Lake Washington, and Woodinville will have something to say about that, as well as over on the east side, Chiawana and Davis. But there is a very high probability that both Camas and Union could be top 8 seeds, which is very, very good if you're looking ahead to the Tacoma Dome, because being a top 8 seed means a lot.
Yes, it gives you a more direct path to get to the Tacoma Dome. If you in the opening round, you're going to be against another top 8 seed. And if you win that, you get automatic passage to the quarterfinals. But if you lose that, you can still make it to the Dome by going through the Wednesday game, you still make it to the Dome no matter what, but you can make it into the final 8 by winning on Wednesday. But you mentioned Kira Thompson getting back to full health. That's what makes this game on Wednesday so interesting to me, in that I think you're going to see the best version of Camas against the best version of Union, being that when Union and Camas played before, Union, I think, was still learning and figuring out a few things about how to play together with some of the new additions. And you saw that manifest with a little bit of a slow start by the Titans before they figured things out in the second half. But then they were able to pretty much control both subsequent games against Camas. However, the caveat being that Camas wasn't fully healthy for either of those games. So now you have a fully healthy Camas and a well-oiled machine in Union that are on a collision course this Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll speak about Union. I think the Titans are playing just exceptional basketball. I mean, Brooklyn Haywood, obviously the league MVP, well-deserved for that, but just not only her scoring for me, but we've seen her really take and elevate her game new ways as far as assists and rebounds, leading the team in those categories as well. But the play of Mila Larry, just an exceptional guard, just really savvy with the ball, just finds the way to get to the hoop, finds the way to get transition buckets. I think this is just going to be just a fantastic game. And the fact that it's in Battleground for, it feels like the 6th consecutive year, is also a regional site. So again, if you're a top 8 seed, I mean, it looks really good possibly playing at what will potentially be next week a home game, more or less, playing at the friendly rims at Tiger Gym.
Well, Battleground should be rocking. Another place that's going to be rocking on Wednesday night is Fort Vancouver High School, because you'll be there. Fort Vancouver boys trying to punch their ticket to state for the first time in a long time when they face Kingsway in the district semifinals.
Yeah, just a great story. So Fort Vancouver, this is the school's first full year as a Trico League member across all sports. For the last 3 or 4 years, there's been some independence in football, maybe some special scheduling to accommodate some of their girl sports teams. But the WIAA, as far as competitive equity, this is really, Fort Vancouver is the poster child of what competitive equity is all about. Gone are the days of classification strictly by how many students you have. And so the fact that Fort Vancouver, this could be the first time going to state since 1989 when it was back just in the AAA classification, back when there were just 3 classifications in Washington. So first year coach James Jones, he is a Fort guy. He's been a longtime assistant under James Inslee. He's seen a lot of ups and downs, not only as a student, but also as an assistant coach. To see how far this program has come in just a short amount of time is just fantastic. The last 3 years, they got a combined 8-53. They're now 16-6. And facing a very, very good Kingsway team that's playing its best basketball right now. They finished in a 3-way tie for 4th in the Trico League, but they beat Fort Vancouver just a short 2 weeks ago by 12. So it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere at Trapper Gym. Just about all of 18th Street was there for their first round win over Elma, a game that I saw. So Wednesday's game should be an absolutely fantastic atmosphere.
Well, I think that's so awesome that the rest of the school is turning out for this boys basketball team, because you and I have seen it over and over when Fort teams have struggled, whether it's in football or some of the other sports, where they just, because of reasons that go beyond what's happening between the lines, they're just not competitive. And it's great to see Trapper Nation show up for this team, which is being, one of the best in the league, putting out a great product and allowing the student body to really have that experience of being in a gym, being in a crowded student section, being in a high energy place where you can take pride in what your fellow classmates are doing. And that's why I think this team and what they're accomplishing is so special for that school.
Yeah, I think my favorite quote was from guard Josiah Joyner after the game, and he said, "We've brought the school back to life." And it was just such a great statement, and it shows just what this team has done as far as uplift that student body community. There were, I would say, probably close to 100 students in that student section. Not only that, but there were a number of alumni or even older folks maybe who had kids go through Fort back in the day, maybe who have no connection to the school right now, but were there supporting the program in its finest hour. And so it's just great to see that community really have something great to celebrate. And so if Fort doesn't do it Wednesday, they still have one more chance to grab a state berth. But I know there's a lot of people in Vancouver and Southwest Washington that are rooting for the Trappers.
All right. Well, those are two big games Wednesday to focus on. And obviously we have a dozen other teams that are still alive trying to punch their state tickets. And we'll be sure to follow all of those teams. But I mentioned at the top of the episode how this is just the craziest weekend. Yep. And it's because we also have swimming and we also have gymnastics. That's new with the calendar this year. It used to be where wrestling and gymnastics, they were at one point at the same place in the Tacoma Dome, but in recent years they've been on different weekends. But gymnastics, you have the great story of Camas and, looking like they might be sort of the underdog at the district meet, but Camas does what Camas does, and led by Maya Richardson and Olivia Aguirre, the paper makers qualified as a team by winning the district title. And then you also have Union, which looked like they might be in the running for the district team title. They have a couple of great individuals, and Carly Christ and Gabriella Howard that could compete for individual awards and honors up there in Bellevue. So gymnastics, it's always, as a non-agile person throughout my whole life, it's just amazing to see what those athletes can do.
Yeah, outside of wrestler, I think gymnasts are just they're special athletes, and they're putting just their body on the line as 15 to 18-year-olds. So it's amazing just the acrobatics and just the ability, the agilities, the routines they're so much fun to watch. And
then looking ahead to swimming, there's a couple athletes that I think will be really interesting to watch up there in Federal Way, and that's Union's Owen Robertson and Prairie's Vladislav Danilyuk. Both have posted some really impressive times, and we'll be very excited to see how they stack up against the state's best.
Yeah, it was a fantastic girls swimming season back in the fall, and it's turned out to be, as expected, just as exciting on the boys' side.
All right. Well, we're going to be, whether you find us out at a gym or me up at wrestling, we're going to be all over the place these next few days, but it's one of the more exciting times of the year. Be sure to follow us on social media, 360preps.com, on our YouTube channel, and we hope you get out to either a basketball game, or if you're headed up to the Tacoma Dome for wrestling, good luck, enjoy the memories, enjoy the experience, and we will see you.